I'm going to show you how to learn thousands of words in any language fast by watching interesting content on YouTube, by you watching YouTube videos. And if you're familiar with my content, you're probably thinking, what's going on? Has Mikkel gone crazy? No. I still recommend you use language islands, you use vocabulary lists, learn all the most common words, write your own sentences with the things you want to be able to say, translate them, learn them, use spreadsheets. Yes, spreadsheets are the best way to learn vocabulary and sentences quickly. Do all of that and learn all the phrases you want to use. But if you want to understand the language well, you need a lot of vocab. And specifically, you also need vocab that is specific to the type of content that you're interested in. So when you learn vocab, there's a lot of different types of vocab, right? Or several types of vocab. There's what Paul Nation calls grammar words, which is, uh, you, me, and, to, at, all that stuff that you learn easily in context because they're the most common words. And they by far the most common words, and those, they're not really something tangible. They're pretty abstract. They're just grammar words, right? Then there's verbs, which are extremely important because verbs basically explain what's going on in the sentence. Then there's adjectives that you have to use, and adverbs, which is basically the same thing, that you use to describe things, and also quite important. And then there are nouns, which are probably the most, not the most common, but the most numerous type of words in a language. There's lots and lots and lots of nouns, and nouns, you'll unless you learn nouns by topic, you'll have to learn a lot of them to be able to understand everything. Right. So one way of learning them is just watch video after video, thousands of hours, and eventually you learn enough of them in context. This is extremely slow and inefficient, and I don't recommend you do this. Right. I highly recommend, like I said earlier, to learn your sentence list, learn your lists of most common verbs and adjectives at least, and nouns maybe, but verbs and adjectives at least, so that all this content becomes much more comprehensible early on. But once you know the most common verbs and adjectives, and you've got your several thousand sentences learned, you've got enough vocabulary to understand 80 or 90% of a language when you're listening or watching stuff. And this is where you should start listening to or watching interesting content, actually interesting content by native speakers, right? And what I like to do normally is listen to radio shows or podcasts or this kind of YouTube channels uh, where they talk about what's going on in the country, things related to the country, so you learn more about the country itself instead of just random stuff or like stupid videos for beginners or super beginners, like that kind of garbage. No, like things native speakers are interested in. What's going on in the country? Yeah, so you not only can speak the language, but you also are knowledgeable of the country. Um, so interesting content by native speakers for native speakers. And to do that more efficiently, I just found this tool that is really, really good. Because, first of all, and I think this is how most people use it, um, you get subtitles in both languages. So I'm learning Greek. I'm not going to play it because just in case, you never know. Um, but you get subtitles in the target language, and then you can look up the words as well. And you get the translation down there. So you can watch it in both languages and you can understand it, right? And that is all right. You will not learn very fast by doing that. But here's the best part. This is what's a real game changer with this thing. You get the subtitles here as well, right? But if you come to, I guess if you're using this in English, it's a words here, not palabras. And here you get a vocabulary list. uh, of the whole thing, like every word being used here, and ranked by frequency. This is gold because you see there are a lot of words, and you can simply look up the words here, and you get the translation as well. So you can use, if you can use mnemonics, and you should probably, because it's fast and efficient, and it can be fun as well if you do, if you can, you're pretty good at it. So you can create couple of hundred mnemonic associations a day here, and that will help you understand the actual video once you watch it, because you should do this before watching the content always, instead of learning the words through content. You should first review the vocabulary. This is, by the way, something that if you've read uh, Paul Nation's work, they always recommend doing that. Yeah, you learn the vocab in the content, in the text or in the audio file or video, whatever. You learn the, you review the vocabulary at least before the content, before getting exposed to the content, before the input, right? Because otherwise the input will be much less efficient. You'll understand less. You'll have to look up words all the time. If you review the vocab first, then it'll be much easier to understand. And you'll be reviewing instead of seeing most of those words for the first time. This here, so like these are the most common words, by far the most common, right? 1 to 100. It's really practical because uh, you get them in categories of frequency, right? So these are all grammar words. You can ignore them. You can learn those very easily through sentences. It gets interesting after, well, I mean, it gets, if you're a beginner, it gets interesting here already. But for those of you who've already been learning a language for a while, this is when it starts getting interesting, right? Like look at all the words we've got here, and the less common words. These are all words that aren't that common, and you wouldn't normally learn them until you're at like B1, B2, some of them C1 level, and that's why the that system, the European framework, it's not all that good for many reasons. And one of them is this, because you you need a lot of vocab to understand and speak a language, and they focus way too much on grammar and not nearly enough on vocab, right? So you should you should learn way more vocab. There are people who are doing, and I'm not, like, I'm serious. There are people who are taking B2, even C1 exams, and the vocab is really very limited because they haven't done enough input, and yes, doing a lot of input helps, especially with English, because there's more content in English than in all the other languages combined. But they just haven't been learning enough vocab because the classes, but this teaching system, it just focuses way too much on grammar. All right, so you need more vocab in general, and this is a very good way of learning. And I know I'm just rambling here for a while, but stay with me because I'm going to explain how to do it now. So you take the vocabulary list, and I just started Greek, so my Greek reading is pretty bad. I can read, but not very well still. So you probably notice it's a different alphabet. So if I mispronounce, if you're Greek and I'm butchering the pronunciation, sorry. I've been learning for like 3 weeks. All right. But yeah, basically, this most of these you shouldn't create associations. Some of these, Thelo, Lego, Edo, this I know a lot of this. Let's just ignore them as well because those, again, easy to learn in context. Let's go to the interesting ones. So you go to ranks 2000, 3000, whatever here, um, and you start looking at words. So varetos. Um, I knew this one already because I had Varieme is I'm getting bored, or, or we're getting bored. But my grammar's still not very not very good, obviously. But yeah, I knew that varit that was that was that meant boring or getting bored. So varitos, and you'll create mnemonic associations for them. All right, so find something that sounds like this. It sounds like a V, by the way. Uh, it's weird. They have this beta thing that's a it's a V sound, and then they've got the N and the D sounds. No, N and the P sounds that make a B sound. No, N and P letters combined make a B sound, like a proper B. Um, right. So you find something that sounds like varitos, which for me was, I don't know if you were a lot into dinosaurs when you were a kid, but baryonyx or baryonyx, I don't know how it's pronounced, but there was one that was fish eating, and it's very clear because I used to play this, and I'm gonna date myself now. That was the 90s, right? I'm old. There was this video game where you it was like one of the first video games I've ever played. There was this dinosaur was there, baryonyx. The Lost World must have been like 99 or something, or 98. Yeah. So yeah, I visualized those dinosaurs getting one of those and getting really bored. And I can easily picture it because I remember there were like, one of the levels in the video game you have to like escape. It was like a yeah, it was one of the levels of that dinosaur as the main antagonist. So I just visualized that dinosaur in that video game level, but they're getting really bored. Like just the guys like yawning and stuff. And if you actually visualize it, you'll remember it. Again, you need reviewing. I always say this: like it's not like the burnt in your memory forever. No, sometimes yeah, it does happen. Sometimes you make some weird association and never use that word ever again, and still in 10 years you still remember it. It can happen, but you need reviewing. But that's the reviewing comes with the input, right? Like you do this 100 more times or as many times as necessary with the whole thing, and then you watch it, and then tomorrow you listen. Maybe not watch it, but you listen to it again. It's not that long. You can listen to it. Maybe it is okay. It's 23 minutes. Can listen to it while working out later. Um, Again, I prioritize my own when I do prioritize my own sentences first because I want to be able to speak. But being able to understand interesting content is also really important for me, at least. And if you if you're really interested in the language and the culture, you should listen to stuff about what's going on in the country and all that stuff, or whatever you're into. But just I know I don't have to convince anyone to do more input. What I do have to convince people of is that you need to learn vocab before doing the input. Otherwise, the input is extremely slow. But yeah, so let's do a few more. This one, not sure how it's pronounced, so we're gonna skip. S S S yeah, Sisu, Sisu. Yeah, I'm gonna skip it because like later on I can simply just take him, put in a translator, and hear them. But I don't think we can hear the audio now here. But yeah, the ones that I don't exactly know how to pronounce them, I'll just paste them in a translator and listen to the word once, and that's it. Right? Topoth topotheticity. This one's topotheticity. Placement. Uh, so location, position. Topo is mole, like the animals that come out of the like they live underground in Spanish. Thetice, thet, placement, location. Those that kind of words are harder to visualize, except if you've got some kind of scene where you've heard someone say it in a memorable way, or some scene from a movie or something like that. And I don't know if you watch the UFC, but back in the day, well, not back in the day, it was like 5 years ago, when Khabib Nurmagomedov was fighting, I was always like, send location, brother, send location. So I just location whenever I see location, I just remember that easily. And then so you used to say that like, you want to fight me, send location. Uh, Actually, that wasn't his accent. It doesn't sound Russian. It sounds from the Caucasus. But yeah, so visual, that's easy to visualize, and then sending that message to a mole on topo. And the thetici part, uh, theta is Z in Spanish. So he's sending that to a mole, and the mole has the Russian army, the Z they use all the time. Like using the mole's on a Russian, wearing a Russian uniform, and it's got the Z there. Um, and if you actually visualize the whole thing, I know it's very complicated, and if you don't know the characters, and if you don't know that it means that in Spanish, and you see, you have to use things that uh, have some meaning to you, and maybe you speak another language that I don't speak, so you can use words in that language. I use a lot of words. I use a lot of English as well, but I use words in Basque and Spanish a lot, obviously, but also in other languages. I just very randomly mix them, and then characters, any kind of like people I know, famous people, people from films, scenes from films. I use a lot of things like that. Anything that's easy to visualize. Uh, cat, Katokia. Again, not sure. I'm gonna look it up later. Pronunciation, but I know it's KTK. That much I know. Kati, Katoke. Um, so dwelling, residence, habitation, like your house, or a residence, like student dorm, or like a place where old people like they get sent to by some people. You can visualize one of those, and Katokia. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly the pronunciation of that works, but KTK, KTK. Uh, I mean, cat is easy, right? And then we just add another K, which is if it's vowel K, like A K or I K or E K, I always visualize an AK-47. They're pretty fun to shoot, by the way. Uh, so cat, just there's a student dome nearby here. I just visualize a cat with an AK-47 entering there. Not gonna continue with what happens afterwards, but yeah, you get the idea. That's all. Okay. Dolarion or Dolarion. No need to visualize. That's dollars, obviously. Z. It's. I've noticed a lot of words in Greek have similarities to many similarities to other languages. This is like "жить" in Russian is to live, and then "z," which doesn't sound exactly the same, but it's very similar. Economica. Again, no need. Asiopet, Asiopetos. As Pete, an S in the end. As again. Credible, trustworthy. Um, what comes to mind when you think of trustworthy? Like, I just have one guy who I can think of. Like this, I mean, there's some people who are more trustworthy than others, but some like there are a lot of people who aren't trustworthy at all. But there are some very few people that who I can think of, and they're like, yeah, that's like definition of trustworthy. If you know a guy like that, just think of that guy. Reliable as well, the same guy. Boring but reliable. And Asiop- Asiopetos. I know that's an S. That's the thing. The S's and the O's look very similar. Asiopistos. So aspistos, asiopistos, as pistol. Yeah, that guy getting shot in the ass with a pistol. Easy, easy to visualize. I mean, and pretty memorable as well. Yeah, again, like my Greek's not very still because the S's look so much like O's. It's still, uh, but yeah, no, this is an O. The W thing. This is Zefe. No, Zefeno. Zefego. Yeah, let's see. Cefe, Cefigo. Cefigo, yeah. That's the thing. Like, it's some some of the letters look similar to to the Latin alphabet, and some look similar to the Cyrillic alphabet, but they have a completely different sound. So it's quite confusing. But I'm slowly, not slowly, like it's been a few weeks only. Third week, I think. Not bad. I'm already learning pretty fast. Uh, Sefigo, I think it is. Figo was a football player. Se, the SS, for example, is sound. And Figo, most of you probably weren't young enough to, aren't old enough to have watched Figo, but it was really good. Luis Figo. Yeah, I can see him running away from the SS, and he just slips away, escapes. That's it. And normally, when I'm not explaining all of this in front of the camera, and I know, like I can read actually, not like a like I can read fast instead of like working with a completely different, uh, not completely, but different alphabet. You can do this way faster, right? So 100 of these a day, uh, what, like 15 minutes maybe if you get fast, half an hour if you're slow, and then you watch the content, right? You watch the content, you'll see most of those words in context. The ones, some of them you will have forgotten. It's inevitable, but you'll remember a lot of them, and you can then review them as well very quickly. Just review the list, and if you keep doing this daily, with 100 or a couple hundred words and reviewing the content, you'll very quickly learn thousands of sentences. And once you know like 5,000 more or less, you understand 95% of the content, even more probably, without looking up words. And you want to get there as fast as possible, so then you can just get a lot of interesting input without spending years watching like beginner stuff and all that nonsense, right? Because that's just, I mean, you can keep doing that if you want, but it's inefficient and also just boring. You do this, and you're doing it not on camera, not like having to say something entertaining and explain things. You're just doing it and visualizing things. It can be a lot of fun to do this, and you can, like, if you set a timer and okay, I'm gonna do this for 15 minutes, you'll end up doing it longer because you're having fun, and then you watch the content. All right, so it's a fun way to learn a lot of vocab. But yeah, this app, by the way, is called Language Reactor, I think. no app, it's an extension. Language Reactor, pretty good if you even if you don't do this and you simply just watch the content, reading the subtitles while listening. You do it a couple times from start to finish. You learn, but it'll be more, uh, much less efficient and much slower if you do it like that. So, and again, this looks very complicated doing this, but once you learn how to do it, you can learn massive amounts of vocabulary very quickly. And I always say vocabulary is everything. If you don't know the words, you cannot understand, and of course, you can't speak the language. Right. By the way, apart from the 30-day challenge that you've got a link for in the description, I started a second channel with all my videos in other languages because and videos with which you can simply learn the language by watching. Right, more spreadsheets. Yes, I know some of you hate the fact that I use spreadsheets, but it is what it is. Spreadsheets work, and if you've got uh, some staying power, like you've got some discipline and you can actually sit down and focus and do the work, spreadsheets with audio are extremely effective when it comes to learning a lot of sentences. All right, so playlists there with a playlist per language with lots of spreadsheets, all the common words, all the common verbs, nouns, adjectives, all the grammar. Just watch and read the sentences and repeat aloud and do it over and over. Do this as well with the sentences and with the words in the sentences, and you can very quickly learn any language with that. Right? All of that is for free, by the way. It's on my second channel. Our link is in the description as well as the 30-day challenge.